Yeah, we got stuff. Can you turn that mic on, Kyle? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's call this meeting to order with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now, we do have a quorum, however, Jake Edminster and well, Jake Edminster is not here, so we'll need a motion to excuse Jake
Or not excuse.
or not excuse him, as the case may be.
How many times has he been, hello, everybody. How many times has he been absent so
I
far?
think he's only been to 2 meetings in like the last 6 or 8 months. I can get you that exact information, but technically the way it works for council is we will only excuse you if you've contacted someone from City Hall. If not, it's considered just a no call, no show. And that's
Yeah,
usually
makes sense.
it's up to you guys to make that call, not me, so.
Well, do we need to reach out to Jake and
I think we have.
we have,
Yeah.
he hasn't responded?
I know Caitlin spoke to him about getting him hooked up on Notify Me. And he was told her he was gonna show for the training. And he just didn't, and we haven't heard from him since.
Well, I assume his work schedule keeps him from showing up, but just the same, what's the process then? Do we need to ask him to tell us what his intentions are, or just?
I think that's
I think
Renee should reach out to him. 3 unexcused
Yeah.
absences, and technically we can remove him from planning commission. Renee, if you'd like to reach out to him and find out what's going on, it's probably more.
Yeah, I think it's okay to go ahead and do, because we considered doing the unexcused absence the last time, but we let him come in and things like that, but it just keeps happening. So that means he would have 1 of 3 if we do it now, and then I'll reach out to him and make sure and let him know what's going on. And I think that seems part of what we should be doing, because there's been quite a few of these instances. So I'm okay with that if you guys are.
I'd make the motion to do it unexcused, just because it'd be easy to just call you and say, hey.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So Kyle has moved that we do not excuse Jake from this meeting. For being absent. And Tracy seconds. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Nothing against Jake.
No, absolutely not. We just need to see him, or he needs to let us know that he has to step down. So that's where we're at with the quorum and that sort of thing. Now, in addition to the items listed on the agenda, are there any other business items that we need to add? Okay, we'll just skip that then. If everybody's had a chance to read the minutes and look at the business licenses, do I hear a motion then to accept the consent agenda?
Say yes. I mean,
Okay, Tracy has moved to accept or approve the consent agenda. Do we have a second?
I do have
Second.
Okay, Renee seconds. Questions, discussion?
I just have one little thing for the meeting minutes.
Mhm.
There's a part in there where it just says, Tom asked the public if they had any objections to Kyle and Tracy's letter of support. I think that it should just say to the issues that Renee brought up, because it was Tracy's letter and then my support was the comp plan. It just sounds like I did a letter of support in it, and so I just wanted to say.
No, I think it needs to be specific, Kyle, and it should be the exact thing that was brought up.
Yeah. And that's, so right now it specifically says letters of support, but I didn't have a letter of support for their conditional use permit. I gave comment during the comp plan.
Right, that should be clarified for the one where we were talking about the zoning designations, right?
So what was it? What was that last phrase? I'd see exactly to, Tom asked the public, blah, 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 instead of letters of support, what are you wanting?
I was just saying, from my perspective, it would make sense to say any objections to the issues raised by Renee. Because Renee raised the issues and then we
I
basically
get-
ask the public, hey, do you have any problem with either one of those issues?
Yep, and I think the issue is too, so, and I'm gonna let council know as well, I forgot last night, but from now on, when people are in the audience talking, we need them to come up to the podium.
Yeah.
Because on YouTube, you cannot hear them, and so when we do minutes, we're usually going off of YouTube, especially right now, because I'm not even recording. Sarah, will you grab batteries? These are dead. And I think that's what happened, was we were just kind of trying to make it work, so I apologize, but yeah, so if you guys could have everyone that's in the audience come up to the podium and speak, that'd be great.
You guys do that?
Everyone,
Yeah. And
I'll get this fixed now.
also, while we're at it, under the 121 Alder Street conditional use permit, I see that Christine Anderson presented her request. I only want to ask, is that her last name? Or is it Gordon?
It's Gordon, Sarah did these minutes, let's blame her, and I didn't review them.
Okay, so
Where do you see that?
under public hearing. Conditional use permit.
Where the hell did you get Anderson from?
What?
Where did you get Christine Anderson from? What are you talking about? Gordon. I don't know.
I only caught that because that's one of the
Was it the,
ladies at our
did you get your
church.
Dan's mixed up? Even from Dan.
Yeah.
Anderson, Dan Gordon?
Yeah, sorry, guys. That's okay. I should have checked him, sir, and I didn't, so it's technically my fault.
Or maybe it was supposed to be and her son.
Done. Yes, well, that's.
So I feel like there was more conditions, limit the number of pickups, limit the number of employees, limit the hours. That was it, right?
I think so. I think that's what
Number of
we had.
pickups.
I hope that part's right, because I re-listened to it like 6 times.
Yeah, well, that was important too. Yeah, that was important. No doubt.
But we had a specific number of pickups that were on there.
And Christine told us that
18.
that would be an awfully good
Did
day.
I put that
And they've never had it
Yeah.
like that.
Because it's the conditions. I'm gonna go through it and I'll bring these minutes back to the next meeting, if you guys are okay with that.
And it is briefly listed in there up above. Todd brought up the limit, 18 pickups per day. It's in the
Okay.
spot for you to reference.
And then the number of employees was 2, correct?
Or one, just.
Was it one?
I think.
One, just one.
Yeah,
Okay.
just one.
And then the hours were 9, 11. I'm gonna bring
I
these
think it
minutes
was,
back.
I know it was to 7. I remember the evening hour. It was to 7, right?
was on an 11.
Yeah, 11 to 7.
I can go through and all of it on the
Yeah, so, and only because, it has to do with the permit.
Okay.
So
Sorry guys, I'll be better.
it's my fault. I should have checked them. I didn't even check them. Not your fault.
On most of the land use ones, when I'm involved, I'll issue a notice of decision after the planning.
I did
commission,
that, yeah.
I'll attach, so, and the notice of decision lists all the conditions of approval, so it makes a good reference, but on this one, I do my full services.
I did. I sent them a letter and it's in our platform. So it's like your conditional use permit has been approved. These are all the conditions, blah, blah, blah. But I would like it to reflect in the minutes too.
Yeah, it should.
I'll bring back.
Well,
Double check.
okay, so we have a motion to accept the minutes and well, the consent agenda
Unless you guys are good with those changes, then I can just make those changes and we can.
with amendments. I guess that's the way we should. put it.
Yep, I'd like to have the actual numbers reflect. So that's fine.
Okay, great. Let's with those corrections and everybody's had a chance to look at the business license applications. We're okay with that. So we have a motion and a second call for a
We wanna see
vote.
if Tracy will modify his motion to include the corrections that we did, and then we can just approve it as is.
I'm sorry, what?
Just have you modify your original motion to include the corrections that we discussed.
Yes, I,
Okay, the motion's been
Yep.
made, modified, seconded. And do I hear vote?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Yep,
motion
that's fine.
carries. All right. Do one of you fine planning commissioners have a report? No report? Renee?
No, nothing to report.
Okay,
The only thing I saw is they talked about the other night at the city council meeting, the Cedar and Maple Street flooding.
mm,
And I walk by there every day. And what I'm seeing is people just keep driving on that. That, where it's creating flood, they're driving on PR. And there's been like, you can see where it looks like a dump truck drove across there. And so
Mhm.
what they're doing is crushing the drainage system, but
yeah,
it's being driven on. I mean, it's like, I've seen them do mass work on it,
yeah.
but
That,
people
our
keep driving on it.
public works people,
No, not us. There's more issues there at hand. They were supposed to tie into our stormwater. It wasn't done. So we are working on it, but yeah, what you're saying is correct. That was the fix after everything was built, and supposedly there's a drainage under there. I haven't seen it or if it's actually even there. But that's what the contractor said, is that there is a drainage there that's supposed to go over to the park and it'd be like a sort of French drain. And he says that it's clogged because people keep driving over it, but there was supposed to be curbs and sidewalks there that didn't get done, and that would have prevented the issue. So, we're working on it.
yeah, is there a way to enforce that? Was that in the, permit that he would,
Yes,
but he didn't,
correct.
so it can be enforced.
We're working on it.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Any other reports then?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to the public hearing. And that's not applicable,
Correct.
so we'll skip that, go to new business, which also is not applicable. We'll go to unfinished business, sign regulations, and I would assume that everybody here has had a chance to scour, not just look at, scour the draft sign code simplified version. I know I did, and I just had a great time doing it. So let's discuss that, shall we?
Before you guys jump into that, and before I forget, I need Tom and Renee for you guys to do your classes too when you get a chance. They've been assigned.
Yes, I'm halfway completed with a few of them, but they're
Okay.
definitely over the time limit for sure.
Yeah, okay. I keep forgetting, and so I didn't mean to interrupt. When's the last time you did classes? I haven't checked them, so
That's a good reminder. I need it, so thanks.
I'll talk to you after. You remind me.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank
Todd.
All right, no,
They're
that's
super fun classes.
just a little distraction. Okay, but I might have had that one. Anything pop up? Todd, you want to?
So maybe the place to start with this is so the simplified version that was presented at last month's meeting in February didn't contain a lot of the elements that we had talked about. It was much shorter, but it was much simpler, but it didn't contain many of the elements. So what I've done is I prepared. First, I updated it to include definitions and a few other things that are kind of mandatory code elements, or not mandatory, but they're typical code elements. And I went through and I put it in our standard numbering and code format. And then I just compared that sort of on a topic base for what we had discussed in our longer draft that everyone wanted to pare down. And that's what this document is, the comparison long versus the revised simplified draft. So some of the things that are still missing, we don't have, we now have deleted the section on the temporary signs, including political signs. We have that language in there.
So where's the one that we simplified, Todd? Is that just we have to go to the other packet and get it, or?
No, it's included in your packet tonight, but
Okay.
it no longer looks the way it did before. Because now it has, and this is the incorporating the 2026 Planning Commission. So I took the simplified draft that was presented at the end of our meeting, and I tried to go back and incorporate the things that we talked about in our January meeting. And then this is the draft that resulted from that, and I did go back in and I added definitions. And I fine-tuned the definitions here, even from the longer draft that we started with in the couple of meetings prior to in December and January, or in January, I guess. So we could start with this any way you'd like, but the pieces that if you can give me some broad direction on,
I remember we talked about this idea of the things that stuck out to me were the idea of not allowing the signage on the posts, on the light posts, so that the city wouldn't be left with having to clean those. We had some language around that we were concerned about. And then there was I think we beat the horse to death on the size of the sign on someone's property and the personal sign. So there was like 4 foot by 4, I think is what we ended up with. And then we didn't want the strobing, high intensity strobe light things in there. And I thought there was some idea about the political signs being, I think that's part of our normal code, right? After a certain amount of time, they have to be taken down, or is that not the same for residential? I don't know how that works.
So we had the version that we discussed in January when you gave all that input, but then there was a 3-page sign code that someone prepared and brought in and presented it to you all in our February meeting, and you all said, oh, we like that. That's better. It's more readable and it works better. So I went back and I tried to look at that 3-page version to see, well, how did it get to 3 pages?
Right.
And there were some of those things that we had talked about that were no longer in there. But yet your direction was, well, we like that draft. Well, I mean, the shortness and the readability, sure, I can try to keep that. But as you add more of these elements back in, like, oh, well, we do want sandwich board signs, or we don't care about those. We just don't want them. If you don't want them, then we don't regulate them and they're just prohibited. It's short. But to add it back in, it takes another couple of paragraphs to address that. And every time you do that. So what I did in this draft is I tried to go back in and add in the typical code pieces. And then I prepared the comparison that shows you what I haven't brought back in, like sandwich board signs. There's no code section for sandwich board signs anymore. So if you all can tell me, yes, we want that back in, or no, we want to keep it short and leave it out. If I keep adding all these back in, we're going to end up back at the 12 or 14 pages that I had before that nobody liked the length of. So
Well, what I'm wondering, Todd, a freestanding sign, is that a sandwich board?
yes,
Okay, so we have a requirement for a permit for a freestanding sign over 4 feet tall. But a freestanding sign,
in the residential districts.
okay,
And those are signs on posts that you pound in, or the freestanding. They're not attached to a building or structure.
they're not a sandwich board.
They're not on a sidewalk or in the public right of way. Right now, we prohibit all of those.
Oh,
So you can't put a sandwich board sign in front of your business.
Okay, so what we're saying is, in the simplified version, we've just taken the flexible language out and we've said this is just outright not allowed, essentially. Is that
The simplified
is that a
version
fair
that
way
was
to look at
presented
it?
to you last month didn't include any standards for sandwich board signs or freestanding signs. I put some of that back in, but not all of it, because if I bring all of the things that code omitted, if I bring it back, it makes it the same code as you looked at before that you already told me you didn't like. So I didn't want to do that. So what I have here is a mid-ground. We're at about 7 pages. I've got some of the things in there, but some of the things are not in there. Like sandwich board signs. The revised draft that was submitted, the simplified drafts for the electronic scrolling did not go with what our big long discussion on scrolling messages and signs. Instead, it just said it has to have static content for a minimum of 8 seconds. So you have to have an 8 count, and then you can switch to your next message. So it does not allow for the scrolling of messages, but it instead, so it's a departure from what we had talked about before. But that was the direction you gave me in the last meeting is, yes, we like this draft better, so I tried to, as much as I could, stick to the draft that you liked better. And I started getting into it and realizing if I bring all of the things back that we had in there before that aren't in the draft that you like better, it's going to be the same code that you already told me you didn't like. So I'm trying to go with your wishes in creating this, but there are some key points that I need direction on. Such as, do we want signboards and do we want to stick with what we had in there before for those?
I definitely think from my perspective, the idea of the temporary nature of the political signs, I thought that language made sense. I thought the language of the signs on the posts, so the city doesn't have to clean them up, regulating that, I thought that made sense. And then I think we all agreed on the size of the signs for the residential maximum. And then the strobing light thing, I think is something that we definitely want to be able to qualify on a case by case basis, but we didn't want to have that there. We agreed that the scrolling text was okay, but that the strobing for less than that amount of seconds and then changing all the time, that was not something that we wanted to see. We wanted something like the school has right now, which is totally acceptable. I think that was the language that we came up with.
It was, but this version departs from that now and goes with the standard 8-second rule. So the school district sign would no longer comply. I believe that they actually have text that
That's right.
It's a reader board style.
Right, so I thought we would do like something that would compromise that, so we'd allow the scrolling text, but not
Okay.
yeah.
So you want it back the way it was before the draft that was presented last month?
So,
Because we already had that nailed down, and I think everybody was happy with that because it basically allowed what the school district had. And would allow others to do similar signs that had that scrolling messaging across there. So
Yes, but it still had the second stuff. The time.
It was like 2
flashing.
seconds. I don't think it was 8. I think it was 2 seconds.
2 seconds. That's all right. Okay. So then, yeah, if we want to go back to that, I think that was something we all agreed on. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Tom.
so we're using the Toledo High School reader board as a model, is that right? Is that what you think, Renee?
Just as a reference, I know it's a small sign. It's very visible. I think we all drive by it, so we have a good idea of what that feels like. Thankfully, there's no person living in front of that sign where that's right in front of their house and their windows. I know that could be very disruptive if somebody, we don't all live in those situations, but if somebody did, it may degrade their quality of life to some degree. So those are just. So I have a hard time reconciling it in a way because of course we want people to be able to showcase whatever they want, but at the same time with the people that live here are used to they want to have a certain level of peace and quality of life. So I'm wrestling with that is where I'm going. So but I also think that, for example, the school sign is very charming and it does what it needs to do. So
that sign may be in a commercial zone. In the downtown mixed use zone, but not in residential zones, you wouldn't allow that type of signage.
that kind of makes sense to me. I think the mixed use and the commercial zone would probably have signage that would, but I don't know if it would be blinking all the time. I think those would be more fixed, wouldn't they? I'm not sure.
Well, the downtown, I mean, it's just what you're willing to allow, and I think in the downtown core, in your downtown mixed use zone, I think that type of signage seems to me like you don't have that downtown, but it seems like it would be appropriate in similar fashion to what the school district has. If you look at your waterfront mixed use zone and your residential zones, that type of signage probably isn't appropriate for those zones, in my opinion.
Well, what do you guys think? I think that makes sense to me, but what do you think?
Yeah, sorry.
I think I have to recuse myself from this discussion because our church at the corner of Augustus and 4th is in the process of putting up an electronic reader board, and I don't really know where it fits in this, so I just have to listen.
I mean, you can, I think that you've disclosed that enough times in these public meetings where your influence and what you're bringing in from your knowledge isn't a conflict of interest in this case.
Okay, my only concern, and we've talked about at our church council, we've talked about the impact of traffic and visibility, and we've got it up high enough so that traffic won't be impacted. The folks that designed and built and are installing the sign itself have told us that it can be programmed to dim way down to nothing at night, so it's not affecting neighbors. It won't.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's designed to fit in with city codes. But it's not, it's going to be in a residential area.
Because you're a conditional use in the residential zone.
Yeah, it is a residential zone. I don't think we're a mixed use. Fourth and Augustus.
Well, we do have
Maps are
a,
up there.
yeah, I guess they're up there and we do have them online too. I could click on them,
But
but
like to give you a perspective, John's truck right across the street.
John.
Same thing, you guys are kind of right there where you may be abutting residential, but you're not residential
Or
yourself.
that's it, we're abutting, but.
yeah, this pink is commercial.
Oh, we're good.
So you're in a commercial zone.
Okay,
This green is that's the downtown mixed use zone, and then this zone along is the waterfront mixed use zone.
okay, well, I kind of hoped that that's what it was, but I wasn't really sure. Okay,
See,
well, that's great.
they're different colors in this map, and you have commercial in yellow. So your property is actually zoned commercial.
Okay,
The school is actually zoned residential. So
Interesting.
wow, who came up with that?
it's common for churches and schools to be on residential property. It's the lowest value real estate, so.
Okay.
And you might be able to answer this. Do you know, was the school district subject to our regulations when they put in their signs, or were they?
We just
outliers?
annexed them when we annexed.
So when they put in their sign, they weren't subject to they only had to deal with the county for it.
They only had to deal with the county for it, and they got. they
Yeah, I don't even
probably-
know when the sign went up. It was just there one day.
Yeah.
So I'm not very observant.
But it wasn't a city, it wouldn't have been a
Sarah
city
knows.
permit at all. They were outside city limits.
Yeah.
That's
They are
right.
inside city limits now. They signed on to the
Yeah,
annexation.
we had the sign moved and everything.
And I think the ESCO sign people applied for a permit.
I have not received a sign permit at all.
You have not.
No, but I did get a call probably 3 months ago from somebody that was talking about a church sign and the board, and they said, we're just replacing the current sign
True.
with a different sign. And I don't remember if they said it was like the light up ones, but I told them, whatever you're doing, do it now because there's no sign codes right now. So just do it now.
And it's important to note their existing sign is already electrified.
Is it? Yeah, that's what they said. They're like, it's not gonna be any bigger. It's not going anywhere else. It's literally, we're just replacing one sign with another sign. And we have no sign codes right now. We don't even have what needs a sign permit and what doesn't.
Yeah.
I see it's in our code that we need sign permits, but I don't even I'm not gonna like charge someone for a permit to not look at our code. So I'm like, I just haven't been.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it doesn't sound too crazy. I know with this, I think you've already made a sign permit for us.
Yeah, I think it was a temporary
Yeah,
one.
so we've got one ready to go when they're needed.
Is that for the Assembly Church or the Presbyterian Church?
I don't even remember what it was. At that point, it was like, we don't have a sign. We've got very few things in our code. As long as it's, you know, what are you doing? As long as you're not doing something crazy. I forget. I looked up whatever was in our code at the time, but it's like three
It's
three-
minimal, but you
sentences.
do have some regulations in there,
Yeah.
so.
And I just want to tell you, I don't want to be the guy who's on the planning commission dealing with these sign codes. And at the same time, on the committee, on the reader board committee at the church.
Yeah.
and Tell everybody, hey, it's okay, let's go ahead, and then find out, oh, no, it's not. I don't want that to happen.
Well, you are certainly able to limit your discussion as you see fit, and if you want to recuse yourself, and then the planning commission can vote to excuse you, and we can have the discussion without you, but I don't believe that you have a conflict. I think that the type of thing that, because you're working through the process now and designing one, I think that's valuable to everybody here at the table to be able to hear these things about, well, these things can be adjusted this way. I don't know that. I mean,
I agree. I
So
agree
I-
100%. I think your input is super valuable, Tom, and you can always abstain from the vote itself. We have a quorum outside of that, so I think that's all fine.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
To that point, real quick, you bringing up the dimming is kind of the one thing that I don't see in here. So the county recently did like a light pollution thing.
Yeah.
They want all, it sent people into a tizzy.
Yeah.
But it was one of those, do we want to see if there are any illuminated signs have to like fall in line with that or something along those lines where it's just have a hood on the top to where it's not shooting up in the sky or other things like that. I think that light pollution is, I know that personally, when I moved out here, the first thing I did is I looked up dark skies and saw that we were a dark sky community still. So I think that if we are doing electronic boards, how do we limit them at night to where we're not Little Vegas at night?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I can
But-
bring back the previous language that we had on the scrolling signs that allows that type of signage. If that's
And I
what-
remember the Kalama stuff had some sort of language about if the commercial side is facing a residence, it had some qualifications and stuff. I don't think we need that or anything. It just occurred to me that this type of stuff comes up in larger communities. Yeah, I think the other language we thought was okay, and I'm okay with bringing that back if everybody else is good with that. So, but Todd, I would say that just to enumerate the things, I think from my perspective, were the size limit on the backyard sign for residential, the temporary nature of the political, the light post signs, so the city doesn't have to clean them up, and then this strobe light thing, and that was it.
Do we want sandwich board signs or not?
I personally do not like sandwich boards. I know that my landlord will probably be mad at me for saying that. I just feel like it's one of those things, particularly in front of my shop. If I have a sandwich board out and somebody parks in front and opens their car door, there is no sidewalk. And so it's one of those, it's tough for me to be okay with them when there's a level of like, people still need to get through the sidewalk in the process.
But that'd automatically be violating the right of way, right? I mean, so they're violating.
That's, it's tough too, because it's like, the library has their newspaper stand and other stuff out there that it's like, it's taken up the same width as the sign. But, yeah.
So I
I
think
think it
planning
was-
went over this before too, and it was, they were supposed to be brought inside at night too, which.
That's it.
And we haven't been enforcing, but.
That's
And I
it.
know that like Donna puts hers out in like the bump out and
Mhm.
that obviously is not affecting the sidewalk itself, but it's one of those.
Now, Todd, my understanding is that the language around around sandwich boards also talks about, doesn't it talk about leaving enough room on the sidewalk for people to be able to move through? Isn't there language like that around it?
There was, when we had it in there, the current draft says no sign may be installed or posted within a public right of way or public place, including on utility pole, streets, sidewalks,
Okay.
trees, or traffic control devices, unless specifically authorized by this chapter, and we do not authorize sandwich board signs anymore, so those just simply are not allowed in the current draft at all.
So I wonder about, because I know in cheese days, that becomes a thing. Everybody wants to have their stuff out and advertise whatever special they got going on. I know with a lot of small businesses, and we are all driving around town, a quick look at something like that is easy to see. Well, hey, oh, that's interesting. Something special is going on today. So I don't know if there's a middle ground where we can require, you must leave. You can't put it up if it blocks the right of way. You have to have at least, whatever, more than half, or I don't know what the language is. And then you must take it down like at business close or something like that, or at 7 p.m., whatever the language is. To me, that seems to add a little bit of flexibility for the small businesses in town, especially during events. like cheese days, that's when it becomes more of a, oh yeah, I get that. But as an everyday thing, I kind of agree with the points you guys are raising, which is it would become more noise than an enhancement, you know, so.
So we can add an exemption for sandwich board signs in the rights of way. For special event permits and other things, if we wanted to do that.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, that sounds good to me too.
And freestanding sign is a sandwich board, right?
Any sign that's not attached is a freestanding sign. So even signs that you pound into your yard, like the political signs and everything else, those are
But a
freestanding.
sandwich board is a freestanding sign.
It's a
But the sandwich board has this part about it where you
specific
have that
category
little.
of freestanding sign, but yes, yep. It's not.
But if you
mounted
have the
to a building.
sandwich board, you have this little V thing that has a specific size usually, and it occupies a very specific space, so nobody's drilling a hole to stand it up or anything like that, I guess.
So, but I can bring back the definition for sandwich board signs too. So we can define those in our definitions, and I'll bring back a section. And I think I'm hearing clear direction from all of you that they're to be allowed only during special events with a special event permit.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing?
I agree with
How are
that.
you
It's,
able to interpret that in the future? Are you, it's just like if anybody has a special event in town, everybody's allowed to have sandwich boards, or
If
how
you have
are
a
we-
special event permit. So you have to go through the city permitting process, and council approves those, right?
I do now.
You do?
Unless there's like something outrageous on there, then.
yeah,
So that there's gonna be a lot of angry people. I'm sure Donna's
Oh.
bar isn't gonna be happy about. About it.
Not being allowed to have sandwich board
yeah.
sign?
And it is what it is. Is there a way to maybe word it to where it's not affecting the sidewalk they can be out? Because like you said, where the Donna's bar is at, it really doesn't affect anybody.
As long as she brings it in after hours, isn't that okay?
Whatever all of you want is okay.
Well, I'm just saying, if you guys go with what you're saying right now, where you guys are giving Todd direction, then Donna's sandwich board has to go. And that sandwich board's been out for a really long time.
but I think this is a good point. So what
15
Rachel,
years.
Could-
what Rachel brings up is a good point. So this idea is, okay, well, what if we made it so in our regulation, if the sandwich board is allowing all the space in the sidewalk that's needed, it's unobtrusive, whatever, but and it goes down at a certain time of the day, is that okay if it's right in front of their own business? That's the question. And then if not, then the question of the special event thing, which gets more fussy, or we disallow it and let's move on. So those are the things on the table.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of gray area too, because who's to say if it's in the way or not? I don't know if there's a way to really
there's-
word that.
I can write code based on what you want. That's not a problem. Usually they have to demonstrate that there's 4 foot of clear space or 3 foot of a passageway with the sign up. And that'll be part of, it still require a sign permit. So they'll have to measure the sidewalk, measure the sign, and design the sign so that there's a minimum passageway, usually 3 or 4 feet, probably.
So we're gonna require signs or sign permits for sandwich boards.
Mhm.
But then
Hmm.
we
And cheese days parades and all that, and they put it the parade route, are they gonna be required?
Yeah.
that'll be part of their permit.
Yeah.
So that'll be part of the parade permit. So like if the parade permit is approved, it'll have their temporary signs on it. Then I think part of it too is. Yes, on parts of the sidewalk where we don't have perpendicular parking, because it's one of those in front of my shop and they have to park next to the sidewalk. Yeah, it has 3 foot of clearance half the time, but if somebody opens a car door, there's no clearance.
Mhm.
So I think the parts like in front of John's place where you can pull in, there's no way for your door to go into the sidewalk, but like in front of my shop. If there's anything out there and they're swinging the door open, there's no sidewalk.
Yeah. Yep. I see what you're saying. It took it a minute, but
it sounds like we could do something where what Todd is saying, if we have a certain amount of clearance that's required, that would, like if we said 4 feet, that would mean you wouldn't have to worry about that, for example. So it's maybe something like that where we err on something that we all agree is reasonable, not think too much about the edge case, what would be reasonable. and completely disallow the edge case. So that we wouldn't have to worry about smaller sidewalks or something like that, smaller clearances. Does that make sense, Todd? Is that type of language like? Do you remember what the amount of room it needed in the other language that we had?
Yeah, I remember us talking about that for Kalama. So I just don't remember if it was 3 or 4 feet, but those are, I mean, those are standards, and I think the 3 foot is based on ADA, and the 4 foot's based on some minimum sidewalk width that jurisdictions have. So, if you have a wider sidewalk, so if Donna's building doesn't face on the right of way, if she actually has private property that is part of the sidewalk that she has concreted or cemented on her property, or if the city has done that, then she can put a sign up on that piece of property. We're just prohibiting them within the right of ways. So if she has like a 4 foot section between her building and the beginning of the right of way, and then she has the 8 foot sidewalk, she has fairly wide sidewalks in front of that place out there. She could put that on her property. This just prohibits them on public property. And doesn't really regulate sandwich board signs differently if they're on private property.
I think hers is sitting at 505 in Ramsey.
Yeah, it's in the road, isn't it? Like kind of in that.
It pretty much is, but even
Yeah.
that, it doesn't get in anybody's way. It's
Right.
just that if we disallow that kind of, if we could leave it, but she would have to take it in at night, or her manager would when office or hours or business hours are over, the sign goes in.
Well, Donna's is a bar. Does she stay open until 2 like some of the
No.
other bars?
No, she's closed.
8 o'clock on Saturday,
8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday night, 8
Pretty
o'clock,
early.
huh?
Yeah,
maybe 8:30.
roll up the sidewalks pretty early until they don't.
Yeah. I've never been here much past 7:30, so.
There's no
I
point
don't
in
know.
it.
Yeah,
Okay, so with that direction, I can come up, I'll revise, I'll bring back that, I'll bring back the language that we had on strobing. Some of the other exemptions that were removed, the revised simplified draft doesn't have community informational signs exempt. So I think we should bring that back. The on-site real estate signs specifically, I mean, even though those are a type of freestanding signs, public information identification signs that we actually spent some time talking about exempting those.
Yeah, we did.
So I'd like to bring those back
Okay.
from the longer draft, and they are quoted in that middle column on that list.
Yeah.
Todd, that was my one other question with the real estate signs. In the current draft, we have real estate signs must follow temporary signs. Temporary signs are only good for 60 days. Do you feel like we're limiting people's, like, there aren't a lot of houses that are selling in 60 days nowadays?
Oh, yeah,
Is that-
certainly. So when I bring them back as exemptions, then they'll just be exempt.
Okay.
So that will address that concern. So then they'll be allowed to exist and they'll just be exempt and they won't require permits.
Okay.
Anything that's exempt from our sign code does not require a permit. Anything that's allowed in our sign code requires a permit, but is allowed. Anything that's not mentioned in our sign code becomes prohibited.
Okay.
So we're basically prohibiting stuff if we don't specifically allow it. And if it's not a more specific category of something that's more general, like the freestanding signs, sandwich boards can be freestanding signs. But if we regulate sandwich boards, now we have regulations for that type of freestanding sign. So
One other point to that for everybody would be prohibited under their inflatable or moving signs, including feather flags. All Dan has out right now is feather flags for his business, and I don't want to limit him with that if we can avoid it, but also
Right.
it's one of those. How do you guys feel about 6-foot feather flags for everybody?
Damn.
I mean, he's already got a
The
temporary.
flags he's got for the yogurt shop.
Oh, I know.
They're called.
Oh, right. Oh,
'Cause
okay.
You look
Gotcha.
at them, the shape of them.
Yeah.
looks like
And it
feather.
sucks because the way Toledo's set up, there's so little room for advertisement.
Yeah.
It'd be great, like, if there was some kind of big sign, everyone could put, oh, there's a cheese shop in town, there's an ice cream shop in town. But yeah, it sucks removing, all the feather flags and the sandwich boards, because it's like there's no, everything's just laid out so weird.
So it's just one of those, do we want to keep that prohibition in there and have to take away Dan and Donna signs at the same time, or do we want
I
to
don't wanna
talk
do that.
about?
No, we don't.
Definitely don't wanna do that.
We don't want to discourage folks from advertising their
Yeah.
business. I mean, we don't.
We
want-
don't. We also want to remember that Dan is not in a commercial zone. He's got a special use permit that enables him to do what he's
Not Dan
doing.
Anderson, we're not
Oh,
talking about
different-
Dan Gordon, we're
different-
talking about the ice cream shop, Dan Anderson, yeah.
The frozen
Oh,
yogurt.
okay. I
Froyo.
see.
And his big flags. So right now, the current draft has feather flags prohibited, and it's like the only thing he uses is feather flags.
That's it.
And so
Right.
I don't know if we want to take that out and let feather flags be allowed, but then it's one of those that opens up the worm of we allow it. for
Yeah,
all,
everybody's gonna-
for all,
whoever has it.
Everybody's got 8-foot feather flags out. It's like,
And those prohibitions were introduced in the simplified draft. Those weren't in anything we had before. We weren't.
That's right.
We were allowing flags, specifically, we had a section on flags and flagpoles and.
That needs to be addressed too at some point, especially with Flag Day coming up.
So I think we should talk about I want to just give some clarity on one thing. Rachel, is the actual permitting of specific signs? I mean, that's obviously, is that a revenue source in any way? Obviously a little bit for the city, but how much of that is more work than revenue, I guess?
We haven't done any because there's really not a lot of code for us. Well, one, there was never a sign permit form.
Yeah.
So people would call and say, I need to fill out a sign permit. Well, they've never had a form here before for sign permits.
Got it.
Not one that I found anyways. And so the code was small enough to where making one seemed kind of like highway robbery, like I forget exactly what was in the code, but it was no neon. Did he even say no neon? I don't even think it said that. Our code was, and still currently in the land development code, is still really small.
Yeah.
There's not like anything on sizing or anything like that. So there wasn't really anything for me to check. We didn't have any regulations, I guess. So there was no permit process.
Right.
So I mean, I understand having somebody fill out a form to let me know that they're putting in a sign. As far as what kind of revenue it would bring in, I mean, I couldn't see charging more than like $10 or $15
Right.
for a sign permit. I try to charge based off of what my time is. So
Right.
if I'm spending an hour on something, what's my hourly wage? Looking at it kind of in that terms. But again, it depends on how complicated the code ends up being, on how much work the office is going to have to do to it.
So what I'm thinking about, and this is what I want to bring to the table, and Todd, I want your feedback on this, is the idea that, like, I think what Kyle mentioned is the germane thing, is here we have a situation where, like, well, in this particular case, of course we would want that, right? But then what if we're growing and we have everybody wants only feather flags outside of their business? And then we have to ask ourselves that question: what does the town look like? Is that what we want it to look like? Is that going to be okay for everybody? And then it begs the question: is the correct instrument to mitigate that risk just to have it be a conditional use thing where we can just approve it on once we inspect the use? Is that the normal way that's done, or do you know what I'm trying to say, Todd?
You're going to
How do
run
I
into
look at that?
favoritism there, though.
Well, if you're going to make it a conditional use or somehow a higher level of review for a specific type of sign, you just need to have standards by which, some additional standards that apply there. So you'd have a.
Right, which has
standard in that
nothing to do
case.
with language, right?
It does have to do with the language in the code. So the standards should be in the code.
I
Otherwise,
just meant
if it
no
comes-
language in the sign itself, meaning it's all about the structure of the sign that we're talking.
it's all about the structure of a sign, but if you wanted to allow feathered flag or flag type signage or feathered flag signage, you could do that. And I would suggest that rather than just saying, well, it's conditional, come to us and ask,
Right.
Certainly staff wouldn't make that decision, and I wouldn't advise planning commission or council to make that decision. So you could say it's conditional based on the following criteria. No
Mhm.
other, vendors within 1,000 feet or 10 feet, whatever, have the same type of sign, so we don't get overwhelmed with that type of sign. I'd also offer, and when we started this, I asked you all the question, what are we trying to regulate? Right now, we have very minimal regulations, but we have almost no issues with the types of signage that we have in town.
Yeah,
So usually, when you develop regulations, you're trying to do that either proactively because you can see that things are going to change in a way that's going to impact the city and you're getting ahead of it, or reactively by saying, these are things that are popping up in our community and we don't want them, we need to regulate that. So for signage, right now, you do allow most signage, the feathered flag, but you don't have an infestation of those around town, so it's not an issue. So maybe just to allow them for now. And then if you do start to develop something that you're seeing, oh my goodness, we're turning into the feathered flag village and we don't like it, then you can adjust your regulations then to either prohibit those or limit them. But
so that makes sense to me. So then we don't, what that says to me is that we don't need to just think of everything right now into this one little paper. We can just not regulate the feather flag, and if it becomes something we want to do, we can always do it later. Is that the way to look at this?
yes, yep. I mean, code's never permanent. It always kind of evolves and changes. And, I think we're getting into enough things now where for the next couple years anyway, we'll probably do regular code updates about once a year to correct things that we're discovering in previous things that we didn't think about or oops, that shouldn't have been omitted from your zoning code. But, so some of those things, so we'll probably open up the zoning code once a year on a
Yeah.
schedule anyway, and we'll try to lump all these together in one annual update. So things that aren't working, we can go back and fix and fine tune.
Well,
So that's where I'm leaning then. I would say then if the folks on the board feel that the feather flag should be allowed, I think we should just take them off of the prohibited list and let's see how it evolves and we can adjust as we go along.
I feel like we have a general consensus that we can remove it from the prohibition list.
Perfect.
Okay. Good.
I love to remove prohibitions.
I think just having this more simplified, the reason I brought this up again, like kind of going back, is because we were having issues with signs. The regulations that we had were very inconsistent. Some of them were in our nuisance codes, and then what we did have was so small. So a big thing is if we could just maybe simplify this, but expand a little bit on our current code, like political signs, that's a big issue in our world today. So everybody has a thought process on that. One, it's like, are we going to allow them? Which I think we should. Where are we going to allow them? And those are the things that I think we need to figure out, like what Todd's saying. What issues are we having right now? What currently are we working with? Our commercial area is expanding a little bit. So if we've got businesses coming in, like what signs are going to be allowed? Maybe
Yeah.
keeping it really, really simple, but just expanding it a little bit so that way when people call and they're like, hey, there's a campaign at for the school board, can I put signs around around the city on city property?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Like I don't, because it's not in our code, I'm not sure. So I think having more guidelines in those areas is really going to be, like Todd was saying, maybe let's look at what we're dealing with right now and we can fix things later if they're
Well,
problems.
and I think that's kind of the direction we're heading with this, but as we talk about bringing these things back in now, we're making it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But a 14-page sign code isn't that overwhelming for staff to be able to understand. And if we want to allow this in this case, but not in these cases, then we need more, that just takes more words, takes a
But I
higher.
think this middle ground that we're talking about makes sense. So it's a little bit of guidance here to enough to make things a little easier for everyone.
Uh-oh. He froze.
Like
Oh.
the previous version, which is a lot more expansive. And so we can just edit that as we go along.
Okay, so I will remove the prohibition for that type of sign. I will bring back the sandwich board. Okay, what was the next one here?
Political signs.
Fence signs. So we don't have any sign standards if somebody wanted to paint or affix a sign onto a fence.
Don't we? I thought we did.
We used to in the longer draft, but we no longer do.
Oh,
So
Man, all
that-
the good stuff.
That was something else that the simplified draft took out. Again, not an issue. Maybe we don't need to regulate it.
I haven't seen any around town. I haven't seen anything that I would say, oh, we can't have that sort of thing. Have you? The closest thing I've seen to it was the Presbyterian Church, but they changed it and put one small sign up instead of three big ones.
Is
On a
it the-
fence.
I was gonna say it was the men's group.
Yeah, right, yeah, so it's all one small sign.
But we do have general signs for wall mounted signs. We have size regulations in our code, so.
Yeah,
So it would just
Yeah,
be
we do.
regulated that way. So we could regulate a fence sign as a wall
One
mounted.
per
sign.
tenant, up to 1 square foot per building. Per foot of building frontage.
yeah, it would be covered on the
Okay.
existing sign, or that makes
Right.
sense.
So that, the longer draft had several sections on that, so I won't bring those back. Before we had specifically addressed how a sign goes away. So an existing grandfathered sign, as long as it was maintained, could be kept. But the simplified draft, well, and then it said if it became in disrepair or disarray, then it had to be removed. And that's the way to amortize out all the old signs that are no longer there. We also have a section in there that says you have to remove your signs 30 days after your business closes. So those two things together will help to evolve all the signage into this new draft. The new
Yeah.
sign doesn't talk about that amortization at all, so I was gonna bring that back because I think that's useful. But it tends to happen by default anyway. I mean, as signs become in disrepair, not many people go back out and try to reuse them, so maybe it's not important to bring it back, or maybe it is. That whole idea that what happens when a sign is no longer needed or no longer used wasn't discussed in the shorter draft.
Well, I think that's something that doesn't, sorry, go ahead, please.
Political signs especially. The candidate is elected or not elected, either way. Do we have something, a certain number of days?
There's a state law for that
The
one.
state law for that, okay, even on
7
private
days,
property.
right?
Yes,
It's like 10 days
Okay.
after the election.
Okay, then we're covered then, okay. That's
I was
fine.
just gonna say, Todd, I do think we should bring back that language about the aging out of the signs that you just mentioned. Those two things, not only do they seem short, but they're not things that are considered when people are looking for permits or guidance. They're just ways of us enforcing cleanup and standards. So I do think that makes sense to have it spelled out.
Okay, I'll add that back in there then. I just wasn't sure. Yeah, remove within 7 days is what we have in our current draft of the vote,
Yep.
event, sale, or activity, which is consistent with state law.
Okay,
That's for residential zoning districts, so.
well, Todd, I'm just gonna say, if you have enough input for sign regulations. And since we have 4 minutes left, maybe we should look at SMP updates, and I have to confess, I don't know what SMP is.
So that's our shoreline master plan, or our shoreline management plan. We adopted an update a few years ago, but we never followed through. The state Department of Ecology has certification authority over some types of shorelines permits. These are permits that are within 200 feet of a state designated shoreline. So within the city, you have one, the river. That's
Right.
the only shoreline you have. So we're really talking about the area within 200 feet of that and associated floodplains that are adjacent to it. And this is an issue because we were required to update our master program. We did that, but we never followed through with the state to get their approval, so it's not effective even though council adopted it. Because it can't be in effect until the state approves it. So whatever process was followed before, and neither Rachel or I were here during that time, so well, whatever was there happened, and we don't know what exactly or why. But we need to pick it up and move it forward.
Okay.
So the state has already reviewed the draft and given us some comments. And that's what I provided you here tonight, and this is just kind of a warm-up conversation about it. We're not going to go into a lot of the details, but one of the questions came up, because, you know, we're always trying to save our city funds, and having me go through and rewrite code sections takes funds. The state has generously offered to, well, we'll just make the edits that we want to see if you want us to. We don't do that normally because a lot of communities feel that's heavy-handed. And they don't like it when the state edits their code. It's okay for the state to comment,
Local control.
have that local control. But in this case, you all are going to review it anyway. So
We get to review their edits, that's
you
fine.
get to review their edits. So my response was, yeah, I think the city would like you to dig right in and make your edits in that code, but let me check and see just to make sure, you know, because there might be some community sentiment that I don't understand. I'm not a resident, I don't live here. So I just want to check with you all, get your gut reaction to, you know, but you'll get to review it. It'll go through a code update process, just like anything else. So we'll have public hearings on it. We'll get public comment on it. After that, you'll make your recommendation. Council will have public hearings on it and get their teeth into it and make changes as they see fit. So I don't really see, and the types of edits that they're asking for, I looked through all those in the draft. It's like, yeah, these make better code to me. I think these all make sense.
Okay.
There were nothing in there that they were asking for that would change fundamentally what we would want to do anyway. So, and a lot of the edits and comments, I don't think most people even they're technical. And they don't change things in a technical way that's bad. They kind of clarify a technical aspect of it. So I don't really think the edits are going to be that bad. So I would recommend that we let the state do that. It'll save the city some money. It'll mean I spend less time making those edits when she already knows what she wants because she is the state commenter. So I think we should take her up on that, but I wanted to run it by all of you first and get a.
Okay, yeah. Do we need a motion on that? Is that just something we can
It's
say?
discussion, we're workshopping. I think if there's any objection to the state directly making edits, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I would ask a question here, and my question would be, I remember that when we were looking at critical areas, you thought it was appropriate to have the consultants come in and look at the specific context of Toledo, right? It's not, I know these are statewide suggestions that apply to everyone, and there's sometimes local context that maybe we would want to do slightly different here or try to ask for. And in your opinion, this looks like it's a straightforward thing. It's not the same type of concern.
It is the same type of concern, but my understanding is you already did that before council adopted it. So I think we've been through the process to develop all this regulation
Jim Hay.
and get the comments and have a professional that weighed in on that stuff. I will still be involved in this and I'll still be advising you. I'm still going to go through, I'll work with the state. I'll work with you all. I'll work on edits. I'm not washing my hands of it. I'm just saying, yeah, let's use the effort that the state's willing to put in to create that draft. And if you have some disagreements, then we can talk with them about it. We're also utilizing a joint adoption process where we're actually going, instead of having a city adoption moving forward and then forward it off to ecology, we're all adopting it through the same process. So,
awesome.
They have a new thing that I haven't tried yet with shorelines where we work in parallel. So the state adoption and approval happens in conjunction with the city review, adoption and approval. So, and we have requirements to have websites and other things that are related to it in order to accomplish that. But Rachel looked at it and I think you felt like that was that too saves us time and money because it minimizes the time that we spend in the process.
Makes sense.
So yes, I think we will, and we might want to add back in some of the elements that we hit pretty strongly on when we talked about the waterfront mixed use zone. the waterfront trail and some of the other things, I want to make sure that those aren't prohibited by this plan, either the past version or the edits that we're making. We don't want to do something silly like encourage it in one section of Berkeley, then prohibit it in another, so.
Exactly.
We will have
Yep,
to look at
So,
that.
so I'll try to make sure that we don't do that, but it'll still come before you, so I guess, like I said, if everybody feels good about having the state do it. I guess we could also recommend to council that we get somebody else involved from. Because I myself am not a habitat or wetlands biologist, which is why I had ELS help us out with our critical areas, because those technical pieces I sort of understand through application, but not the science behind them. So if you think that's important in this, I believe that's already been done with the past draft, so. And our critical areas codes are gonna be cut and pasted into this from what ELS already developed. With minor modifications to comply with shorelines regulations. So I don't feel like we need that, but if you all want that as part of the input that goes into that, we could make that recommendation to council too.
I don't see any reason to reinvent the wheel.
I agree there.
Yeah, I think,
You can't turn down free work either.
no, I mean, it's a win-win, I think.
Yeah, because we already did the due diligence at the front end, so, you know, we can just look at what they come back with and make sure that there's no glaring anything, and we have Todd to also point something out if something is there, so that all makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't know, Tom, were you on the planning commission before when that went through? That would have been what, 2022?
2020, I think, was when they dropped the ball on it. Or it should have,
Maybe.
or it started in 2020 and then it just never, through COVID, they didn't, whatever.
No, I get to say, no, that wasn't me.
Yeah, there were people, so it looks like Eric Hayes, Brian Dennis, Daniel Kane, Steve Birch, and Nora Davis were all through it. And they came out, and I've read reports, they talked to council, and I think it was Jim Hay.
Yeah, he's actually with Mike.
Yeah, now. Yeah.
Now, so, and he was able to give us some of the background information, but not a lot.
Right.
He's worked on a bunch of other projects since
Right.
then, so I don't think he remembers, and, but we do have access to all their files if we need them, but I think at this point we have what we need.
Yep.
But you did have other professional input into it previously before.
Okay.
So we'll use state help, and then we'll get it scheduled for your agenda in months, in the following months. We'll start to pick this up.
All righty,
Be our next big thing.
that sounds good. I think it's time for public input. Please limit your input to 3 minutes apiece.
No, I think, sir.
And seeing no public. Then, if there's no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Renee moves,
Second.
Tracy seconds, all in favor of
Aye.
adjourning? Aye.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.
All right. Have a good evening, folks. Thank you.
I hope you feel better.
Yeah,
Thank you
come on,
so much.
Renee.
But